can you talk about some of the challenges that you've experienced as not only as a player but as a captain? And like you said, women sometimes deal with things differently than men, and so how do you navigate that environment?
Yeah, so I think a little bit like what Ben's saying is that caring side is very much me. I'm very kind of want to make sure everyone's okay, because then I believe if someone's happy and okay, you're going to get the best out of them. Now that might be bad way of looking at it, but that's just me as a captain. And I think I've been captain for 4 years now, and I've definitely learned a lot in the 4 years. Like I haven't, and I'm still not perfect. Still got a lot of things to learn, but actually I've learned how to be me and how to be me as a captain, which I think is really important in the process I've kind of had the last few years, is that I've learned not to be somebody I'm not. And actually I struggle with those kind of confrontational kind of conversations, but that's okay. And that's okay to struggle, but as long as kind of I'm having it for the right reasons. And I think a little bit like what Ben says is that I try and build relationships really strongly, not only with my players, but with my coaches, my staff members, because I think that's so important. And like, we're all going for the same goal. So our goal now is to medal at Tokyo, you know, so that's our goal. And actually, how do you best get there? And how do you best, like Ben's saying, get the best out of everyone involved? And I definitely think those relationships, and say, for example, Ben needs to hold something back, but actually I can have a conversation with him like what are you holding back from us? And we can have that conversation. It doesn't need to say the rest of the girls need to know, and then I can help him decide almost from my point of view and the player's point of view, do we need to know that, or actually hold off a day because something else has gone on, you know. And I definitely think it's the off pitch stuff that people don't really see as well. Like I kind of think I thought when I first got it, I was like, oh, I can do that. I've got a motivational chat. I'm not really that kind of person, but I can give it a go. I'll give a motivational chat at half time kind of thing. And I've definitely learned that it's way more than that. And it's more about bringing the squad together, and actually how do you drive standards, put people in uncomfortable situations, but almost be their shoulder to cry on. And trying to balance all of those things is hard, and I definitely do get it wrong sometimes. And I kind of reflect on some things. I'm like, wish I shouldn't have said that, or shouldn't have done that how I did. But then it's how I kind of react to that situation. And if I haven't liked how I've said something, I will always go back the next day and be like, look, I'm sorry, I'd said it for these reasons, you know, or explain myself, because then it gives people the opportunity to understand why you've done something the way you have.
I think on that, what Abbie said is that, so one thing I've learned over being across the sort of men's and women's programs is how influential sort of the captains are. And like, testament to Tom Mitchell, like he's incredibly, like, you know, instrumental for the men's program. But I think that in a women's program, having someone like Abbie is even more so important, because there's so much other stuff that you have to deal with. You know, you need to have such a high level of emotional intelligence. You need to be able to communicate. Like, Abbie's helped me on so many occasions where, you know, I'm not, you know, maybe there's times where I've been frustrated, and, you know, you have to, there's ways of how you verbalize that to the rest of the group, so you don't lose the players for a week or so. And like, I think, you know, like Abbie touched on, she's got so many other, you know, almost jobs that she has to do just around the motivational speech, that I think that captain's role is hugely instrumental. And I think that that's a testament to Abbie of like how much she's focused on developing herself as a captain, and, you know, how she's learned how to bring the best out in the group. And, you know, I think that any coaching staff, S&C, medical, head coach, you know, there's that book, The Captain's Class, and it talks about that importance of captaincy. And I think that is, you know, that is exaggerated even more in that female environment.
Yeah, Abbie, can you maybe give some practical examples of the things that you have to deal with as a captain that you didn't envision before you got the title, you got the role?
Yeah, what kind of I guess there's all sorts. So for example, like Ben, he was a new staff member that came in, and then when you come into an environment that's kind of already set, like no one else really changed apart from Ben, and it was adjusting, and I think we're going to touch on it, but a male coach coming into a women's environment, you kind of have to learn a little bit and learn quickly, because actually we do deal with things differently. And I guess, like Ben's saying, like if he's maybe said something or it's not gone how he would have wanted, I can always pick him up on that. And I think it's kind of getting respect and understanding somebody, but also like learning about them and like why they've done something the way to have, or they might just be super passionate or super angry, or their emotion might have taken over them in that moment. And how do we help get back to kind of, we talk about red and blue brain, and that blue brain being your calm, content self, and your red brain being the person that is you, but it says something in a rash kind of way. But I guess also kind of from a kind of, we always say like politics kind of view, and there's always something going on, like moving parts and people behind the scenes. Like we had a manager called Jo Tyler, who was amazing, absolutely amazing, at her job, and you know, and she had so much other things to deal with, and it would be like, oh, can we go and why are we not on this pitch today, or why are we on this pitch? And it would always be like, oh, those little bitty things that was all the kind of politics. I call it politics, but I don't really know what else to call it, but that kind of side to it, that
logistics, politics,
yeah, that kind of side to it, that actually, how do you feed that into the girls, or we have to push training back an hour because of XYZ. Like you say it to the girls, just we're pushing training back, done. People will go, well, hang on a minute, that's not fair, and react to it. Whereas if you kind of, I go away to Jo and go, why have we done this? Got it how it is, and then relayed it back to the girls, maybe on an individual basis, because everyone's so different in our squad. But I've done it in a way that everyone's happy with it, even if they weren't going to be in the first place. Which does probably make my job a little bit harder, and I probably spend too much time making sure everyone else is okay before myself. But I also believe that that's going to get the best out of the team, and that's why I do it.
It's almost being that filter between the staff and the squad, and making sure that the information that passes through is sound and it is going to resonate with the team, like you said, because if it comes across a certain way from a staff member, maybe they won't understand it as well as if you try to bring it to them, right? So it's almost like you're on that edge between, I'm part of the team, but I'm also the link between the squad and the staff, and so you have to kind of play on both edges. Yeah,
I guess there's kind of, it depends what the message is. I think that's the key bit, is what it is. Because I know there's obviously loads of players that got obviously relationships with the staff, and that's all great. But I think there's definitely kind of the question side of it. People always come to me and ask me 50 questions about a certain situation, and I might not have the answers. So it's like, some people don't want to have that direct conversation with the coach or whatever it might be, but actually, I guess kind of the filter, the kind of the in-between guy as well to help.
Maybe we can transition to talking about something you mentioned, Abbie, is a coach, a male coach working in a women's team environment. So maybe Ben, you can start on that. What have been some of the challenges or the adjustments that you've had to make coming into a squad of women?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I've worked at a couple of female teams. I think this one's probably been the most difficult to bed in straight away. Like, sort of my predecessor KJ, obviously really well respected sort of S&C coach, very experienced, really well bedded into the team, had like amazing relationships with all the players. So, coming into any environment like that is always, really hard shoes to fill. So like having that awareness in the first place, knowing sort of what a challenge it was going to be, and she was amazing. She gave me like a good insight into sort of the group, and help with my transition for that, which I thank her for. I think for me, there's a lot of female environments don't necessarily have a preference. So with regard to sort of male and female coaches, I think like obviously the traditional way, because of lack of opportunity and stuff, as we've spoken about with regards to sort of female coaches, is that there's a male coach and female players, obviously, like and quite rightly so, that's changing a lot now, which is great. But I think certainly a lot of the difficulties don't necessarily come from that male and female group, but more regards to having an awareness of sort of specific individual relationships. And, you know, a lot of the girls have like an own sense of structure and routine that they were used to. So, you know, I was very conscious about coming in and disrupting that. I think, and I had a really good conversation with the head coach, Charlie Hayter, about this. And we're talking about sort of his views on sort of male coaches in a female environment. I think the normality is for male coaches to come into their female environment and shower a lot of praise into the group. Just, I don't know why, that's just how it is. And you speak to a lot of sort of elite female environments, and that's a natural thing to do, is want to come in and want to shower praise, where sort of I don't really like that approach. And maybe that comes from sort of having a few more years of sort of female experience under my belt than some. But I think that probably didn't sit as well with certain players as it did with others. I mean, some players loved it, some don't. But again, that comes down to individual preference. Like for me, I don't like to celebrate mediocrity. Like you give credit where credit's due. So I think always going, yeah, that's great. I don't think that really develops a culture of sort of elite performance. I don't know what Abbie thinks on that, but that's certainly.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think it's hard coming into especially our environment, because we're all very strong, independent women, like very, very strong, and maybe a little bit some more set in their ways than others. And I think if you have someone come in and disrupt that and kind of almost blindside you, you get your back up, and it's just, I think for us, we kind of like, oh, like what, and kind of like had to adjust. And I think any change, we're all kind of not the best at change, I don't think, as a squad. And I think we had our fair share of changes as well. Like we've gone through a lot. We kind of, you know, we were full-time, then we were part-time, and then different players moving back and forth, different coaches, different staff leaving, and we had a whole mix of this within about 2 years. And I think that whole, and like we had to move house, and like, do you know what I mean? So there's so many different things, and I think this was just another thing that we were like had to get used to again, with Ben coming in. But yeah, I do agree on the whole praise thing. I think it's kind of, I'm also like that. I'm like, let's not just praise it because it was all right. Like, we need to praise it because it was really bloody good.
Or at least tell me what I can do to get better, right? Like 100%. Maybe going back to what Ben said about explaining why. Well, you also need the pieces to move forward, and just saying it was good or it was bad is not enough.
Exactly. And like I think the other challenge probably Ben and Charlie probably had as well, coming probably more from coming from the men's sevens lot to our lot, is that our age difference. And we had a lot of girls who were still have a lot of girls that are 19, 20 years of age, still at uni, some of them first time they've ever lived away from home. And then we had Fisher, who was like 35, and then some of the others that were like 28, 29. Do you know what I mean? So you have such a difference, whereas the men, a lot of them are kind of like you mentioned about earlier, Ben, the hierarchy almost. So like you had the top guys who were all kind of late 20s, been around for donkey's years. Then you had like your academy lot, and then you had a few boys in the middle, but not many. And then with us, you had completely the other like end of the spectrum. I think that was also challenging, because like you kind of had to be really careful what you said to some of these younger players, because actually they'd never been in an environment where it was so competitive that you didn't catch that ball today, that's not good enough. And actually that might have just set them off, when actually we're just trying to drive standards. It's not an attack on them. It's just, you need to get your hands up. Come on, like you can do it, but get your hands up, you know? And I think that's where, like Ben's saying about the praise thing, it's not all like, but you did catch that one ball. It's like, no, actually that wasn't good enough, you know?
Yeah, like you said, you have to have certain expectations if you want to drive performance and move forward. Ben, go ahead.
No, I think from that as well is that, you know, a couple of sort of philosophies of mine of creating any environment is to sort of be like, I love having fun, and I love it being engaging, and I love driving that competitiveness. And that was something that I really wanted to bring to the environment. But like, I was really conscious about changing too much. But, you know, through that process, you know, I did, even in the short term, I did see some sort of development of, you know, athlete autonomy. And that was really important to me as being more of like an educator. And then if an athlete becomes sort of quite autonomous and almost makes your job a little bit redundant in a way, that's awesome. That's an awesome place to be, because, you know, you've got a group of really educated women, like Abbie said, really strong, independent women, you know, who and that, I believe that was a, you know, really nice environment to be in. Oh, sorry, go on, Abbie.
No, I was just saying, you definitely came in and like, you definitely changed it. like how we weren't, like our athleticism, like you changed it. And I think that was like credit to you as well, that I think we probably didn't react, like we just keep saying all this change and all of a sudden and stuff. And I think that was always going to be us, and probably how we reacted to it was one thing, but actually over time we all started seeing the differences, and actually you kind of like, oh, maybe that was good for me, and like the whole reflective thing of, oh, maybe that one extra core session, that was probably good for me, you know. And actually you don't realize it until we have to reflect on it, and you go, actually that was really beneficial. But at the time you're like, why the hell am I doing this other core session? I've done 5 already. Like, do you know what I mean?
when Abbie was throwing tin around the gym and flying down the pitch like a rocket, she was having or I should say like a gazelle in your opinion.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I think that, Sean, just on that, I'll give you one example of you know, probably something which the girls didn't enjoy when I first went into the environment, is that obviously I was conscious about making too much changes, but I remember they had these they had them given these sort of 2 free passes for the whole season, which each player had and could use at any time. So if they'd had a really hard week, you know, it was the end of a long block, they go, right, I'm going to use my free pass. I'm not coming to the gym on a Friday afternoon or whatever. I come in and was like, right, they're obsolete. That's not happening. And like, I just remember looking around the room and the face, like I've never been so petrified in my whole life. The faces of some of the girls, especially some of the older girls, people like your Fishers or Debs or someone like that, like, and you turn around and see they're looking at me. I was terrified in that point.
It wasn't a good move, let me tell you that.
Yeah, but I think you know, you look back now and hopefully you can see that it was part of the bigger picture which I was trying to create. You know, that working culture, working environment, and just it was, yeah, I probably could have gone about it a different way, but it was part of the plan that I had going forward to change, you know, the mindset, like Abbie said, about that professionalism. And because of the duration that they've been professionals, especially the group, the age of some of the girls, you know, you don't know what you don't know. So, you know, a lot of the girls had to be educated on how they looked after themselves and how they best prepared. And, you know, there was a lot of involvement around that afterwards. I mean, you know, some of the older girls find that they've been in the program for years, so I understand that. But, you know, there was a big educational piece around that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like, that was a big change, obviously, coming in. We were kind of happy to have it, and we were like, oh, so nice. And then obviously he came in and was like, it's gone. I think it's really interesting because, for example, I know myself and a couple of the girls were like, well, we never use it, obviously, because I'm not going to miss a session like that. That's, to me, is not me. Some people, it's like, I need it, I need a bit of break, fair. But the young, like, speaking broadly, some of the young girls would just see it as like, oh, free pass, sweet, see you later. Do you know what I mean? So that's probably why it was a good thing to take them away. But at the time, it was a car crash. Is what it was.
Noted.